Thank you. So we are running a little late, so we'll jump into the session. It's great to have three entrepreneurs who are leaders in their category, and also Niren, who's an experienced investor for over 10 years now, and was part of one at least the M&A from this sell side before he became an investor. So what I want to start off with that is we have been seeing M&As that have started happening in India. There is also this theory that last man standing. So is it going to be only one company? People draw comparisons with there is only one Amazon. There could be other companies can get started which have all got either acquired or killed in US. So is that going to play out in India? That's something that I want to actually ask all the panelists, being leaders in their respective categories, to give their high-level thinking. I am sure all of you must have also got offers for either acquiring somebody, being number ones in your category. Supam, you want to start?
Thanks, TCM. Good morning, everyone. So I think from our perspective, it's been 4 years that we have been in this business. When we started, first of all, let's understand e-commerce actually is a very tough game. It is actually a game where it's not just an electronic play. There is a lot of physical movement of goods that really happen to make get a satisfied customer. When you talk about different facets of this business, and the business runs at the speed of the lowest link in the entire all the facets of running this game. So when you scale this game, you will eventually find that not every player, I mean, there are lots of aspirational entrepreneurs who will start, and investors will queue up because they really say it's a big game, therefore there will be winners, they will play their bets. And in that process, the bets are played out. There are multiple players within e-commerce, and it could be there are existing offline players as well. Now, when you play out this landscape, when there are multiple online players and multiple offline players, and the battle starts drawing up as the scale really starts to shoot up. The competitive activity becomes tougher and tougher as you scale, and then weakest link becomes the problem for one company, and therefore allocation of funds also starts gravitating towards the winner. And that's really what happened in other markets and will happen in India and has happened with us as well. So I strongly believe it's a game where you can look at it at a vertical to vertical, which in a peer industry, you can look at it at a vertical to horizontal. It's a separate sort of a discussion. Now the point is, in this particular survival of the fittest is what will work and what has to work. It's the team, entrepreneur, the management team really will bring out how do you differentiate, how do you build that kind of competitive advantage which is sustainable for a long time, and others have to sort of yield in at some point or the other to really gravitate towards building one large winner. And it has happened in our case. We had, this is all public information, so I'm sharing. There were like a couple of other companies that were there, which were venture funded. Most of them have folded up, and at some point in time, this had to happen. It could have happened to someone else, whosoever really does a great job in terms of execution. So my belief is, yes, it is a game. It's a tough game. Survival of the fittest theory really works, and everything starts gravitating towards more certainty and building scale in that certainty platform. That's all I would like to say on this.
Yes.
My view is, of course, with whoever develops a more efficient mechanism to attract consumers, to kind of manage consumers, and absolutely, as you said, whoever doesn't have as many weak links in their system will start getting certain economies of scale, if you would, which make it very difficult to compete with if somebody is getting say 90% of their sales or 80% of their sales from direct traffic, now that becomes quite difficult to compete with just because it costs so much to get that initial traffic and get everything else done. So yes, there will be, I do believe that in individual positions, there is going to be a big differentiation. The entire e-commerce game is essentially a game of, who's managed to do it a little more efficiently than the others. And the others will find it more and more difficult. However, that doesn't mean that there is no room for anybody else. It essentially implies that whoever needs to come in as a player to kind of challenge whoever is the most efficient player in the market needs to be substantially differentiated. If you're not substantially differentiated, then it's very difficult to get the same economics as somebody who exists in the market. So if, I don't know, if you had someone like a Naukri.com and you essentially wanted to start a job site and you essentially started something very similar to Naukri.com, and so I'll just be funded more and I'll compete with them and I'll outcompete them, it's going to be a very, very tough ask. And the second part is, see, 80% of the money in most of the ventures, and some may be lucky where, I won't say lucky, some may be situations where the founder may have more equity than that. 80% of the money is with the VCs. So it's not an ego play, it's a financial play. You can't say, I want to build it and I'll keep building it. Eventually the VCs are going to look for returns, and the same VCs in every company. And it's all connected. So eventually, yes, consolidation in some form just may make sense. And sometimes in the same industry, you'll have the same VC in multiple companies. So it will at some point make sense. However, when I look at consolidation, I think you'll probably need to cover that at some point. There's horizontals and verticals. Within a particular vertical, one company buying another, unless there's a big sales impetus, what's the point? I think if you're looking at another vertical and consolidating, yeah, then it kind of does make a lot more sense. Anyway.
Niren, before I come to you as an investor, Dhruv, you are possibly in the most fragmented industry, right? Even in the listing space. And then there are multiple slivers that people are playing in. How do you see things playing out in your category, actually? And
I think I just wanted to clarify that even our space, since you specifically asked the question, has two categories of players online. One category are the people who are participating in the classifieds business, as in they make money by selling listing packages to brokers. And there's another set of companies which essentially make money on the fulfillment of the transaction. So in that sense, there is already differentiation which is happening. So I think real estate as a space in itself is a very large space, and therefore I think we are seeing multiple players getting funded, and people are betting that there's enough room for all of these players to get to significant scale. But as the other panelists have pointed out, ultimately it's going to be the most efficient player who can scale up the fastest, who's going to be the winner. So while I don't see any kind of consolidation necessarily happening around the corner, but over a period of time, as people have pointed out, ultimately there are similar groups of investors across these companies, and people will ask that question. But even in our space, what is very interesting, and I think it goes across the board, that there are companies which have a very differentiated offering, whether it's in terms of a niche segment or from the point of view of a product category. And if one does exceedingly well in protecting that niche and keeping competitors out, I think it's not a bad thing if a larger player comes out and acquires you. So I think we're going to see some of that happen as well.
so Niren, is it survival of the fittest or the richest in e-commerce? Right? Whoever can get as much money as possible actually get as much time to play out. So as an investor, how do you see, obviously we all get to see companies in the same categories even today coming up. But at the same time, you also see huge rounds happening, and some of the investors who are writing very big checks are saying that I can invest only in the leader. And actually oxygen, which is money which is required, is being sucked out of those who are small. Right? So why don't you give an investor perspective?
So I would say that while capital is very important in e-com and internet, right? It is definitely one of the core raw materials. I do think it's always survival of the fittest eventually. And we've seen companies, right? Some companies have built large businesses on 200-300 million. Some have built it over $1 billion. I would just say that, Norwest has been in this business for 53 years. We have about 5 billion under management, and our learnings across US, China, etc. point to one thing, that M&A here is going to thrive and do better than some of these other countries. And let me tell you why. Primarily, we are a super hyper competitive market. There are two reasons for that. One is, initially nobody really broke away, right? If you take someone like let's take e-com, let's take things like Amazon and eBay. They broke away in the US for 8-9 years. The bubble crashed. They had the money. They had 8-9 years to build this kind of deep moat, and hardly anyone could come there. So I used to run eBay's strategy and venture group globally, and for the longest time there was no competition. I mean, it was only between Amazon and eBay and maybe a little bit of Google, etc. Now, cut to China. I mean, similar thing has happened with Alibaba. JD.com, which is the second player, probably 1/10 their size, has come in only like 6-7 years later. That is not the case in India, right? Even the larger players like Flipkart, Amazon, and Snapdeal, they are kind of competing already head to head, pretty much. They're all well funded. They all have someone who can really put in a lot of money. So bottom line is that the competition piece, because of the structure of the market, is going to be there. The second thing is, everybody looks westward or eastward for China and feels like, okay, this sector is going to take off, so let me fund A, someone else says, let me fund B, and before you know it, you have 5-6 players in a space. Now, typically what's going to happen is, in the next phase, you will see that in each of these sub-vertical and niches, they aren't, I mean, some of them aren't going to be as differentiated and as, as kind of exceptional as everyone thought, and people are going to merge, right? So I would think that there will be M&A, there will be this, and of course, the guys, to answer your question, the guys who kind of eventually lead the company might end up being the ones which have actually performed the best, because yes, I mean, some of this, it's pretty transparent for everyone to see.
Okay, but lately we have seen, actually, you may call it consolidation, M&A, in the same category. Like we have seen Ola and Taxi for sure, and also in a very early category like food ordering and delivery. You have seen Food Panda already done 2 acquisitions, right? And that's playing out like already taxis are getting aggregated between a few players who are online, like Merus of the world, but offline, and only Ola being the person standing, maybe competing with Uber. So do you see that this consolidation or M&A, whatever you call it, in the same category, happen much faster now? Because the time that it has taken for the taxi business to take off and then reach this scale and things like that, is maybe 2 years, right? It's much faster than anything else that we have seen.
So I think the way people look at, or the boards look at M&A is very simple, right? There is, you are trying to get to be the top player in your category or subcategory, right? There is a certain amount of spend you're spending to basically beat the competition, right? And that obviously is causing dilution for the founder, for the investors, etc. So let's say that, hypothetically, let's say that Ola and Taxi for sure might have been spending hundreds of crores against each other, right? And that's causing a certain amount of dilution. Well, if they merge, that's definitely going to cause dilution for each of them. But if they feel that a merger is going to be much less dilutive than the other path, right, and more accretive, of course it makes sense to merge. Now, the one difference here is, I don't personally think that they're going to have 2 different brands. I mean, I might be wrong, but when we sold Baazi to eBay, right, in 2004. Baazi was a much, much better known brand. Even today, people come and tell me we remember Baazi, etc., than eBay. But eventually, it didn't make sense for eBay to kind of develop brands around the world and track them and push them, and they decided they want to go for the eBay brand. So similarly, one of the bigger problems here is, unlike a Unilever, which has many brands, most of these companies don't really want to keep 2 brands, because if you're on television, now you're talking about 2 brands, 3 brands, it just whittles it away. There could be some exceptions where it's required because of the nature of the business, maybe like in your case, and but most cases, a acquired brand may not continue unless there is a very different reason why it needs to be.
Okay. So, Supam, in your category now, there is no online player who's even available for consolidation, right? If I may so, right? So, how do you see in terms of growing? Obviously, today, one important hypothesis that we have in our fund is that, quite unlike US, where there were established offline brands, India offline is not extremely established. So, we are seeing companies which are online first, but are creating consumer brands, right, who will become online and offline as well, right, in whatever manner of speaking, depending on the category and what is the touch point that is required with the consumer. So given that, so how do you see in terms of growth? You can look at it saying that, look, you are king of the hill, or you can say that, okay, now there is a mountain called, Indian market, offline or online, I am going to dominate. How do you see that?
I think it's see, when we started, it's not a phenomena that has happened now or late. It's a phenomena that really happened when we started. Before we even thought that we will start FirstCry, the thought came how to really own the entire sort of a game. The game, if you will see, even in developed nations, 85 to 90% market is still offline. And for arguable reason, it will remain that way for a very, very long time. Because of a variety of reasons, we will not go today on that. And having known that fact, if you are able to build a omni-channel strategy, which is an online and offline put together, you are actually increasing your efficiency levels beyond just being online, which anyway is efficient than offline. But if you build an offline-online omni-channel model, then you are super efficient because you are able to capture the 100% of the market. In some sense, you are at your market, size is 100% of the pie rather than 5 or 10% of the pie where you want to become 50% player or 70% player. Which is what we took as a strategy, that we want to look at the whole game of 100%, and because it's a very long drawn 5 to 10 year or maybe 20, 30 year game, and it can run, babies will be born for, forever, and therefore, there is no point looking at just pure online. It's a phenomena that will go a hockey stick curve, and at some point in time it will start, sort of maturing, and at that point in time, offline also could scale up if you run a very calibrated, sort of a strategy. And therefore you can, do not just, M&A opportunities or other things that will come your way because you are the most efficient player in your segment. That's the strategy that we took to build, and, online players have already yielded in, of course, I mean, there are not too many, sort of offline players either, but but the market is fairly big. There are sort of fragmentation. It may not really make sense to consolidate, but what we are looking for is that how this platform of omnichannel can actually scale up and continue to scale, which we are seeing a great traction for us. Today we have like 100 plus physical stores in conjunction with our online platform and mobile, which kind of gives like a 360-degree perspective to a mother, and it's a fantastic view that we look at from our window, that we will capture the whole 100% pie rather than smaller pies, the way we look at it, and we continue to sort of embark on that strategy.
So Ashish, in your case also, the category is like that, right? Policybazaar standing way ahead of everybody else. And so from growth perspective, do you see there is need for consolidation, or if you are looking at M&A opportunities, what will you look for?
So I wanted to make a couple of points along with that. So see, it might offend some people here, but raising funds today for an early stage company is much, much easier than it was 5-6 years ago. And I think, I think a lot of young entrepreneurs are very lucky to be in that situation. So I think there will be lots of investments that will happen. But one has to remember that, when Policybazaar was invested in, we were not the first. There were already 8-10 players in the market, and some of them funded also. And I think the last 5-6 years kind of started to differentiate us, because must be for some reason. I kind of wonder why, but it must be for some reason that, today in revenue terms, we would be about, maybe 50 times bigger than the nearest competitor in the insurance space, right? So, to some extent that plays out, whether it was efficiency, whether it was lack of efficiency of the others. I think it was more lack of efficiency of the others than us. That's how I see it. Now, when you speak about opportunities, I'll be honest. We've gone to people and said, would you like to merge with us? Or, can we come together? And I have no problem. There's only one player out there, which I think makes in a public forum, and ideally this is a stupid thing to say, but it makes perfect sense. They will waste their money coming into insurance, we'll may waste our money going into banking. It's a no-brainer. So for me, it's not an ego deal. I think a merger makes perfect sense. But suppose somebody's within the insurance domain, so we've had the other side also. So, we've had 7, 8 competitors, at least, who've said, okay, we are now giving up, why don't we just merge? It makes no sense at all, because exactly as Niren said, what's the point of acquiring another brand in the insurance category? First of all, regulation doesn't allow you to run 2 brands in the insurance category. Secondly, if it doesn't have too much volume, what's the point? They have the same suppliers, we have the same suppliers. Our platform's already developed, so the IT teams can't really merge. So it makes no sense whatsoever to kind of acquire another insurance player. But yes, if it was something, and I use the term acquire loosely because these days you don't really acquire, you kind of merge. The person who comes in might become the CEO. You don't know what happens. But, and the rest of it is just VC money, so both sides is VC money, so it doesn't really matter. It's just merger all the time. So my point is, yeah, if it was mutual funds, if it was banking, it makes perfect sense. Now what's happening is we're obviously building out Paisabazaar because that merger is not happening, so we're building out Paisabazaar. But according to me, that's a waste. It's a VC money waste from both sides. But because eventually the entrepreneurs just hold 20% or something. So I think that said, we would be not open to acquire anything in the insurance domain unless it was like so dramatically differentiated, which I can't imagine. If it was, so when I talk about differentiation, what it means, it's something that the other party can't replicate very quickly. So if you say that, okay, I'll do a new UX, 6 months the other party will replicate it. If you say I'm going to have some new product creation, the other party will replicate it. So it has to be something so different, which can be like the government of India says only this party can operate. Then yeah, it's differentiated. But so unless you're something very, very significantly differentiated, there's no point. It's just wasting.
India is not China to
wasting
that
VC
extent.
money, I would say. That's all. Anyway.
So there's a question about what do you think of on-demand market, which is now currently gaining ground, right? So I order offline, somebody is going to give me on-demand logistics. And in capital-intensive areas, with high potential at seed stage. This is for you, Niren.
So we are seeing this so-called Uberization trend playing out in India. There's a lot of interest in that space. So take an area like food tech as a sector. I mean, there is, and this is, kind of just trying to stay on topic today. I would say that's a sector where it's hyper-local. It's very, very driven by each geography, and there's a lot of sausage making and execution at each level. So let's assume that someone is doing, I don't know, either order delivery. I'm talking about the logistics side because that was the question. Well, they might do very well in Chennai, but by the time they reach Delhi, they found that 3 other players are there. So again, those kind of things, makes some sense to have some sort of an M&A merger at some point to get to scale. Obviously, mergers are driven by people, and if people don't get along, mergers fail. We've seen that in the past in our portfolio. And but going back to that, I think that economy is taking off. I think to Yashish's point, the money today is available. I would say the cost of money has become cheaper somehow. And it's interesting that when we look at the food tech space, we see 45 companies today now, right? So I mean, it's when we see local services space, we've seen 63 companies in that. So I would say that the spaces are very interesting, but I would still say that it's hard to tell which companies will get funded amongst them, which entrepreneurs will break out. And to that extent, the US just went through this about a year and a half ago, where there was a lot of money sloshing around at angel and seed stage, and then a lot of those didn't go to Series A. So again, I would urge folks in the audience who are entrepreneurs to definitely think very differently. Don't get into this race about, I will do this and in 2 months I will get something and 10 other guys are doing it and I will try and get the money first, and I will use this conference to get that money. I think the main focus should be, are you really building a great company, maybe from a 7 to 8 to 10 year down the line? Are you really bringing in something which is solving a pain point, not 10 pain points, but one pain point? And yes, I think this whole on-demand, especially in India, I really like it, because in India we are always assisted to do anything, right? I mean, if you go to the US and you come to a conference like this, 90% of the people will have driven their own cars and come or something. Here, whether it's a taxi or Ola, Uber, whatever, or it's your driver, etc., we are assisted in everything that we do. So I do like that.
So prognosis in terms of going forward, fast forward 5 years, you see verticals remain as verticals, or they all will get subsumed into horizontals? As entrepreneurs, how are you looking at it? Because within vertical, it is clear that there are people playing in different slavers. For the total market access, people will go into, let's say, M&A within vertical. But there is also the thesis saying that what am I getting extra? Something different. So where you are not playing, like Yashish was saying that, between loans and insurance, there can be cross-fertilization. But if you go into a situation like, now I am a vertical leader, I am number one, there is number two, at best is there. Do you see 5 years from now, vertical leaders remain as they are, or they actually will get subsumed into horizontals? You go first.
Okay. So I think this is a debate where, so the way I look at it is, there is enough room for solving pains of the customer and building value to be able to build differentiation, sustainable differentiation, and scaling the property or a platform and ramping that up, which horizontals will not do. Because they are in a different business today, because they are competing with their own peer network. Had there been one guy already, the things would have been very different. Today, everybody is in a revenue multiple game because they want to declare the whole industry, whole investor network, whole private public markets at some point in time saying, yes, we are the winner, and therefore, this is it. Now we'll chase profit multiples. That game hasn't started yet. Once that dust settles, all the players will have sort of a room to build models and build sustainability through differentiation, through lesser capital, and continue building real business. Now, the first piece, whether it takes 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, I don't know. It's all a game where investors are playing game, what Yashish was saying, and it's a game of investors as well. Of course, it's a strategy which is built by the entrepreneurial team and the management team. Together, there is a game which is being played out. But yes, how long it will take depends on that, whether what the vertical players will do subsequently. If the time is too big, and if that game continues, there is a possibility that companies' vertical space become closer to profitable and really go to a path where they list out themselves, or become so humongously beneficial for a player, and from a both investor and an entrepreneurial perspective, there could be a consolidation that can happen, but the brand will still remain, as what Niren was saying, because the differentiation has been built so well and so distinct and so scalable that the brand will still remain. It's just the handshake of exchange of investors or the parentage from that perspective. But from a consumer standpoint, those two business models still remain as individual platforms, even if they get consolidated. So my sense is, unless those 3 or 4 players which are there in the market, no one is looking like yielding out. It's a 3 to 4 year window which will decide. Maybe 2 to 4 year window. I may be wrong on my judgment here, but 2 to 4 year window it will get decided what really will happen, and that's good enough for players like vertical leaders like ourselves will really be able to build our game, in that shadow, because they are doing the very big uphill task of creating, e-commerce customers today. So we are actually living in that process of being able to not do that, uphill task, but at the same time really build value. Have I answered?
So Dhruv, real estate has been there right from the last boom, right? In 1999 onwards, there are companies which are in existence and playing this. There is very little of, M&A or consolidation, whatever you call it, has happened in this sector. Like we were discussing a little while ago, there are 8 or 7, 9 players already in different parts of it, and there are more coming up still. They are saying that I am different, and recently housing started, which is possibly just 2 years old and has got a lot of money. So how do you see this play out for 5 years from now?
I think, as I said, earlier that, of the 8 players, about 6 of them are participating in the, in the classified space, where, even if you look at the market today, the online market is about, 220 crores, and the offline market is about 1,400 crores. So it's hard to see, at current valuations, any of the players, justifying where they are just based on the sheer size of the market. However, there is a big market out there in terms of the transaction space, which today is almost $1.5 billion. So that's where certain companies, have gone and, build scale, build efficiency. So I think what we might see going forward is some kind of consolidation where, a transaction player comes together with a classifieds player and, becomes a comprehensive platform in this space. There are also interesting, startups, we are seeing in the rental space, in the commercial online space as well, which so far, most of these 8 players have stayed away from. And again, there you could see some consolidation and some M&A happening. So I think it will be still some more time, because the market itself on the offline space in terms of transactions is big. And I think more and more players are going to gravitate towards that, or start consolidating with players who are already playing in that space.
So Naren, we are saying that leaders are getting capital. So does that mean investors like us now should shut shop, saying that, okay, there is no more opportunity? Or people are investing in identifying this differentiation, which could either build out their own or get acquired, but still be a good outcome for investors? How do investors think today? Because today, like Yashish said, raising a $3 or $5 million Series A is not a big deal today. We all have been much more, possibly we used to negotiate whether 5 million has to go or 4 million has to go in a company in Series A 5 years ago, and today possibly when 0 gets added these days, right? So I just want to ask you in terms of what is the mood of investors? How do they look at it?
So I think on this one you should also contribute as IDG. But I would say that different funds have different moods. I would argue that once you've seen a few cycles, you realize that all of this moves in a cycle. I think the reason that a lot of companies are raising funds is also everyone understands it's a good cycle. They don't know whether it's a peak cycle, they don't know whether it's a great cycle, but they know it's a good enough cycle to go out and raise funds, and funds are available and you should take those funds, right? So from an investor standpoint, I would say what we continue to look for is things which are different, things where there is certainly strong teams, strong traction, and obviously markets which can be large. So either you could be playing in a market which exists today and and becomes kind of, it could be one of the things which is big today, but your approach is very different. And I think there are different degrees of differentiation, as Yashish mentioned earlier. So it needs to be very different, not just slightly different. Or you play in newer spaces like food tech or fintech or some of these other spaces the whole Uberization trend, etc., where those markets are kind of open, untaken, but then you have to keep in mind that as you are thinking of starting a company, so are probably another 120 teams. So you better kind of be really good at your game and be on top of it. So I would say that again, at some point cycles will correct and we'll have opportunities to get back into next rounds of existing players, etc. But for investors, I think it's definitely, I'm a big believer in e-com, so I think things will go well. But where to bet, I think people will have different views.
Okay. So I think because you have asked me to do, I'm going to cross the line. And I think we see India is a huge market opportunity, right? So today, possibly 200 million plus people are on internet, and possibly 40 million people have ever bought anything online, right? But I think the future is where we foresee is going to be 500 plus million people online, where mobile will be the first medium of touching the internet. And there are many people who are today accessing internet without even realizing that they are, because they are using an app, right? They are not going and then finding out stuff. And at that time, maybe India will also have, because of 2/3 of people being sub 35, you will see a propensity for adopting the new channels is very, very high compared to having to teach something new to people who are older like me. I think the game is the 40 million going to 250 million or more in terms of buyers on e-commerce. And there are opportunities which will happen. So people are looking at newer areas first, which are currently not, established leaders are not yet there, to see whether we can find the leader. Where it is completely a bet on the team. So in a hyper-local market, everybody will start in one market, right, end of the day. But it's a bet on the team whether they can continue building out very rapidly and then go forward. So we continue investing, but we believe in early stage more than necessarily in late stage. There is disproportionate amount of questions for Niren. So Niren, you will have to take some of the questions off, right? So we have come to the last few minutes. Supam, in your category already there is a M&A between online and offline, right? Where Mom and Me has bought Baby Boy. Do you see that actually happening in other categories? And who will buy whom? Because normal thesis is that offline is getting valued lower today, right? So how do you think it will get played out?
I think this is this playbook of offline buying online. I think it will happen more, in my opinion. Not too many, because there are not too many online players any which case. So, but the weaker players will have no other, weaker online players will have, so there are two parts to the coin, right? One is there are weaker online players that are not getting capital, they will die, right? And then there are offline players who really understand that they will lose the big game of next 10 years if they don't have an online window of opportunity, if they don't cash in or don't really build that capability. It's very hard for an offline guy to actually build a online business, because there is different DNA that is required to actually build offline guide and online. Even if you see US or any other markets abroad, it's very difficult for an offline company. We don't know. I mean, anyone who knows an offline company really has become an an online giant or collectively a giant. It's very hard. Either they were a giant already offline and they had an online channel. Its reverse is also hasn't happened much, that an online company has sort of a have a huge presence offline, because it will won't do because of cost of capital and efficiency and all of that. India is a different classic example, and within that, FirstCry is a very different example. But to TCM's point, I think there will be there are offline companies who have started out their online outfits. So we know several players. I mean, Shoppers Stop have gone ahead and said it. Arvind Mills have said it. We know Aditya Birla Group has said it, Reliance. I don't think there is any large player who have a presence in the market. Either they can do a very expensive build out, and those who cannot afford a expensive build out, they'll probably find opportunities if they're available at a cost which makes sense for them to be able to do this kind of a transaction, and which is what happened probably in case of Mom and Me and Baby Oil. So that's the way I look at it. It'll happen, but to the extent that there are available opportunities of online companies being available and teams available.
Yeah. Any last comments? 30 seconds each. We have run out of time. I've already got.
Yeah, I would say that look, M&A in India is going to happen. I think this is, the party has just about begun. We've seen a few happening right now. They're pretty big M&As, whether they were Flipkart buying Myntra, which was their company, or Ola Taxi for sure, etc. I think there's a lot more going to happen. Even on online, offline, I mean, we are early investors in Pepperfry, and we've had some humongous size brands which are offline come up and say, listen, can we merge into you? We've seen the same at Quicker, where we've had newspaper companies come and tell us, listen, and we're like, what? Really? I mean, we don't want to merge into a newspaper. Thank you. But so I think that the merger side will continue just because of disproportion. One last point, I think if anyone has any questions to me particularly, you can just tweet them to me at Niren Shah 1000 if you don't mind, because I might run after this. So, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to say again that as Niren said, there will be a lot of M&A, especially where companies which are large and have certain holes in their portfolio, whether it's in terms of geographical presence, or whether it's a particular product category, or just a customer segment or a special set of suppliers. I think if there's a hole, these companies will go out and plug them. So I think we will see a lot of opportunities across various categories.
Same here. I think there'll be lots of M&A, but it will only be if there is significant differentiation in the smaller categories. Of course, at a large scale, overall e-commerce, that's a much bigger scale game, and people will be acquiring for scale per se. So that there you're talking about Flipkart, Snapdeal, etc. But for people like us, yeah.
So that's good news for the new entrepreneurs who are still there, and
they can
investors who are
differentiate.
still looking at it,
If they can
saying
differentiate
that
a lot.
okay, there can be M&A. Okay. With that, we would like to close this session.
Thanks, TCM. Thank you.